Thanks and good afternoon. Welcome to today's Veterans Day Assembly, and thanks again to our Student Council for hosting this special event. Veterans Day was first recognized by President Woodrow Wilson in 1919, almost 100 years ago. Back then it was called Armistice Day and marked the end of World War I, which occurred on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918. In 1954, Dwight Eisenhower changed the name Armistice Day to Veterans Day as a way to honor all American veterans, and we continue to honor them today. But I've got to be honest with you. When I was in 8th grade in Brighton, I am a little embarrassed to let you know that Veterans Day didn't mean much to me or my friends. I looked at it as a day off from school, a chance to get some extra sleep, watch some TV, play outside with my friends, and just maybe get a little bit of schoolwork done towards the end of the day. The last thing I was thinking about were the men and women who served our country to protect my own freedom. You see, I was an 8th grader during the Vietnam War. At that time, as a nation, we didn't show a lot of support for our military. In fact, it was often just the opposite. Many of us saw our soldiers as part of the problem. We were more likely to ignore returning soldiers than thank them for their service. And one thing I'm certain of, we didn't take time of our school day to have an assembly. It took some time, but thank goodness a lot has changed since then. Today we take time to honor many of our own relatives and neighbors, and especially the veterans here on our stage today. Honor them for their patriotism, love of their country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for all of us. So tomorrow during your day off, go ahead and sleep in a little bit extra maybe, watch some TV, play outside with your friends, and maybe even get caught up on some of that schoolwork. But also pause for a moment and take time to remember a veteran you know and think about the messages you hear from our veterans here today. Nothing I can say will express how appreciative we are to the veterans on this stage, but your respectful audience behavior and full attention will speak louder than words. Now please welcome our student council officers who will introduce each of our honored guests. Thank you.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Chris Montulli. Chris served in the U.S. Navy from 1992 to 1998 and achieved the rank of second-class petty officer. He was deployed to the Persian Gulf, Central and Southern America. Please join me in welcoming Chris Montulli.
Thank you very much. Who's that? When I first signed up and joined the military, I really didn't think that much about sacrifice or anything like that. It was a relatively peaceful time. I was joining up for many of my own reasons, to kind of get my head screwed on straight, to get some discipline, for an adventure. And I got all of those things out of the Navy. I got a lot more out of the Navy, I always say, than the Navy got out of me. I traveled the world. I went to places I would have never seen had I stayed back here in Rochester. I learned a trade. I was an electronic technician. I worked on radar guidance systems for missile systems and so forth. I gained a lot of skills. I gained the discipline that I needed, and I gained a lot of friends that I still have to this day. I've been on deployments throughout the world, Central and South America, to the Middle East and so forth. So I've seen a bunch of different cultures. I've seen a bunch of different places of the world that I never would have seen before. So my sacrifices were very, very small. I missed some important events in my friends' lives. I didn't have a young family. I didn't have a family of my own at the time, so I was missing maybe some family gatherings for my brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews and so forth. I noticed though when I was in that people that were married and did have families of their own, they were making greater sacrifices, missing their children's soccer games, softball games, what have you, going on deployments for 6 months, 7 months at a time, and missing whole chunks of their family, their young families' lives, missing the birth of their children. I've witnessed that on several occasions. So, sacrifices that people make, not only in the service and then family members of those service members, they also make sacrifices. So, on Veterans Day, I kind of think about those things. Definitely, I didn't have to sacrifice as much as most people, as many other people in the service. I enjoyed my time in the service, and I thank you all for coming here and listening to us today. Thank you.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Dan Moratini. Dan served in the U.S. Navy from 1966 to 1972. In 1969, he was raised to the rank of third-class petty officer. He was deployed to South Vietnam. Please welcome me in joining Dan Moratini.
Well, I'm actually here to spot the kids that aren't behaving on the buses. My job for the district is transportation director, and a lot of you, I don't know your faces, but I know your names. And if I know your name, that's not a good thing. So briefly, yeah, that's all true. I joined the Navy in 1966. I came out of a difficult childhood and difficult adolescence, had some problems with the law, and I thought maybe if I joined the Navy that I'd straighten them out, and it sure did, in short order. First duty station was Charleston, South Carolina, with a minecraft support unit, and that involves support for the wooden minecraft boats that were from World War II vintage. They sent me to Little Creek, Virginia for some extended training, and Fort A.P. Hill for SEER training. I don't know if you've heard about that. That's survival, evasion, resistance, and escape training. And that was a lot of fun. And then I was deployed to South Vietnam as an advisor. What does an advisor do? Well, I kind of made it up while I went along. I gave advice. Keep this brief. I've got to tell you that in all honesty, there's nothing like the service as far as an experience. I think it's a great place to start your life. The people I met were unforgettable. To this day, they appear in my mind as real as if we were still having our unfinished conversations. My wife wonders about that a lot. Who are you talking to? I fell in love in Australia twice. I saw the King's Palace and his golden barge in Bangkok. I saw death and I saw life in Vietnam. And I was only 21 when it was all over. I'm much older than you guys. And every now and then, when I'm least expecting it, I'm there again. I just want to add one more thing. I want to say a happy birthday to the United States Marine Corps, whose birthday it is today. Yes. And I just want to give the Marines on the stage a salute. Thank you very much.
It is my great pleasure to introduce John Graham. John served in the Army from 1967 to 1981. John was raised to the rank of Staff Sergeant and was deployed to Vietnam. Please join me in welcoming John Graham.
You know, when I got up here, they all said to me, I had to talk for 45 minutes, so they haven't got to talk. I'm not going to talk 45 minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. I was in the Army from 1967 to 1981. I had 4 years of active duty and 10 years of National Guard and Reserve time. I spent a total of 18 months in the Republic of Vietnam. And when I was in Vietnam, I was in the infantry. Those are the guys who do all the walking. We don't get to ride around in tanks or on trucks and stuff. We did get to ride in helicopters. That was kind of fun. But Veterans Day is not just about us. It's about all of us veterans, men and women, from all the wars that this country's ever fought. And it's really surprising. Most of you all know of the 5 branches of military service. You've got the Army, which was #1, by the way. Then there's the Navy and Marine Corps, I put them together. And then the Air Force, and of course the Coast Guard. And the Coast Guard actually came into service under the direction of General George Washington, our very first president, very first commander-in-chief. And he called it a shore patrol service. After that, it was named the Life Boat Service, and then it was named the U.S. Coast Guard. Now, all of our services are under the Department of Defense, with the exception of 2. Okay? We've got 6 branches of service. I'm going to tell you about 5. The Coast Guard is under the Department of, now, Homeland Security. It used to be Transportation. And the 6th branch of the service, and not many of you know about, it's called the Merchant Marines, and they're very active today. Merchant Marines, look at that. That's so I know who I am. I forget. The Merchant Marines are the ones that supply all the forces on the ground and in the air, at air bases, their supplies, ammunition, clothing, food, medical supplies. And during wartime, the Merchant Marine Corps would be under the direction of Department of Navy. Yeah, Department of Navy. But in peacetime, and they're still very active in peacetime, they're under the Department of Commerce, which is movement of goods. I had a lot of, I'm trying to break this from 45 minutes down to a couple minutes or so. So when you see people out tomorrow walking around, there's going to be a lot of veterans out there going to all these free lunches and free breakfasts and everything else that this country's honoring us with, these restaurants are. Take a moment and walk up to them and thank them. You know, it means a lot to us. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I came back when the people in this country didn't want us. People in this country spit at us. They threw things at us. And they accused us of killing innocent children. That wasn't the case. So it means an awful lot to me, and it means an awful lot to my men and women behind me here, and all the men and women out here that were in the armed forces. It means a lot to us. You just come to us and say, thank you. Glad you served. So Dad, I think I'll close. And that was a real short version. Let's say, God bless America, and thank you all.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Erica Stannett. Erica served in the Army from 1993 to 1999. In 1999, she raised to the rank of Major. She was deployed to Japan and Thailand. Please join me in welcoming Erica Stannett.
All right, so if I don't use the microphone, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Because I learned to be a lawyer in the Army, so this is what I do. So I joined the Army right out of law school, and a lot of people here have talked about, and a lot of people, when they speak about Veterans Day, speak about sacrifice. I have a different perspective. For me, it was a real privilege to get to serve my country. It was a real privilege to get to wear the uniform and to be part of America's greatest team, which is our military service. The men and women with whom I served were people that I was proud to call my colleagues. I admired, I respected, and I learned so very much from. And that is everyone holding any rank, from the most junior soldier entering the ranks up to the most senior general. That concept of team really comes through in a way in the military that you don't see a lot in corporate America, and I've lived both sides of it now. When I joined, I thought I would just be doing my lawyerly job. What I didn't really understand was it was soldier first, lawyer second. I had to shoot an M16 and qualify with that every 6 months. I stood in the morning at 6:30 a.m. with all of my comrades. I was in a company of about 250 people, and we stood and saluted this flag every morning after the cannon went off, and then went for a run and did push-ups and sit-ups and anything else that would completely wear you out before you started your day. As a lawyer, I got to do all kinds of great things. I was a prosecutor for a year and tried 14 felony court-martials. I was a legal assistance officer. I wrote the rules of engagement for a year. I was the advisor to the general on a battle staff, so I would talk about kind of in a conflict situation, what weapons could we use, at what threat level could we use them, what would we do if we captured a prisoner, how would we have to treat him or her. I spent a year doing legal assistance, helping soldiers who had just been taken advantage of by unfair business people. So it was really learning to do a whole lot of different jobs in a very short period of time. But to this day, it's the thing professionally that I am most proud of and most grateful for in terms of my professional life. Do take time to thank a service member tomorrow if you find that opportunity. If you find yourself in an airport someday and see some poor soldier sitting by himself getting ready, likely to deploy somewhere again, stop by and say thank you. It does make a big difference to them. So thank you very much.
It is my great pleasure to introduce James Highsmith. James served in the Air Force from 1987 to 1997. In 1997, he was raised to the rank of Staff Sergeant and E5 Middle Management and was deployed to Iraq. Please join me in welcoming James Highsmith.
Thank you. My story is not exciting as Eric's story. No, I appreciated my opportunity to be in the military. I left college to join the Air Force Band, and did not like it much and went to logistics because I had a great time. I traveled the world, met great people, and saw great things. Military to me was not a sacrifice, it was a duty I thought I had to do. You know, I enjoyed serving this country, I enjoy the liberty we have, and I'm thankful to all the service members who've done that to ensure our liberties. So if you see somebody, say thank you for your service as well. Active Air Force, traveled all over the world doing Air Force duties, logistics, and it was a good time. So thank you very much, have a great day.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Jim Vogel. Jim served in the Marine Corps in the late 60s. In that time, he raised from the rank of lieutenant to colonel. He was deployed in the Marine Corps Reserve in Vietnam. Please join me in welcoming Jim Vogel.
Good afternoon. I noticed they've got pictures going up here. My experience in the Marine Corps was one that began, like many of us, before the elimination of the draft back in the 60s. And many of us were Vietnam era veterans. The experience I had in the Marine Corps is that we are first and foremost trained to be infantry officers. Then we go into specialties. My specialty was aviation, and I had the good fortune of flying F-4 Phantoms. That aircraft, I think even today, still holds the speed record for combat aircraft of 1,606 miles an hour. Now, I never flew it that fast. The fastest I flew was 1,350 miles an hour. That's still pretty fast. But the privilege I had is just like with the rest of my colleagues up here, is service to our country was not only a privilege but an honor. And I would encourage many of you to think the same. And I would tell you this, that from being a first as a lieutenant and up to colonel, every one of the jobs that I had in the Marine Corps is now open to women as well. The diversity we have in all of our services, and you've heard quite a few of them up here, is a very diverse group today, and it's getting more and more diverse. And I would tell you, flat out for the young ladies in the crowd, when we started increasing the number of women representatives in the services, including the Marine Corps, it was a major improvement. I say that again, it's a major improvement in terms of the quality and the attention to detail that we had. My experience, I had also the privilege as I moved up in rank to, as in the Marine Corps, as trained as an infantry officer. I also acquired an additional training in armor, and one of my last few billets was as a commanding officer of a tank battalion. So in the Marine Corps, you have really the privilege of getting into aviation as well as ground. And I would do it all over again. And I just want to put in a plug also. 2 o'clock, we have the annual Veterans Memorial Service ceremony at the Brighton Veterans Memorial right over in Buckland Park, and I would encourage you and your family to join us over there for just a brief service in memory and honoring the men and women who have given their lives and their service as well. And we have 3 veterans, that one of which I coached in Little League Baseball, that we like to remember because they were very young men that gave their lives for our country in Afghanistan and Iraq. And again, remember that, 2 o'clock if you can. Just come on over to Buckland Park. With that, I think I'll turn the mic back over.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Marty Moynihan. Marty served in the Marine Corps from 1966 to 1968. In 1967, he was raised to the rank of corporal and was deployed to Camp Lejeune, Vietnam, and the Philippines. Please join me in welcoming Marty Moynihan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Our veterans continually protect our freedom, which affords us many opportunities and gives us many advantages that people in other countries don't have. I would like to highlight the word freedom this afternoon. Freedom means state recognition of being free, liberty of personal choice, action, or thought. Freedom always comes to mind when thinking about the military and the veteran. We enjoy freedom because of all the good and courageous things our veterans have done for many years. Respect, gratitude, and honor is a good way to honor our veteran. Our gratitude is to say thank you to any veteran when you meet him or her. This Veterans Day, we honor those who have so bravely served our country. America is founded on the principle of freedom, justice, and liberty for all. Our nation's soldiers serve every day to protect our country and its ideals. On Veterans Day, take a sacred moment to remember those who sacrifice their lives every moment to achieve peace and democracy. In America, we have freedom to go to work, to vote, attend school, to spend time with our families. A single thank you means a lot and goes a long way. Thank you for the invitation to be at your assembly today and for the wonderful hospitality.
Today you had an opportunity to meet up to 7 more veterans, some of whom you may already know. But by a show of hands, how many people know a veteran that's related to you? A brother, a sister, a parent, an aunt, an uncle? Look around the auditorium, folks. You don't have to go far to find someone to thank. And boy, I hope to see a lot of you out at Buckland Park at 2 p.m. Let's give the veterans one more round of applause before we head back to class.